Happy Friday, No More Martyrs family. This is Dr. Nadia Richardson. I hope you're doing well. I wanted to do a quick video today just because I feel like we've had quite a week. We've had a lot of things that were going on this week, and I just wanted to pop on here really quickly and touch on some of those things. So, first off, we started the week with Memorial Day, right? So, this is where we honor those who were lost in military service to our country. And this can be a very solemn celebration. I know there are some who say it's not a celebration at all, right? This is where we just pay reverence and have moments of silence and really recognize those who paid the ultimate price. For those who are Black, you do hear that sentiment that, much like the double consciousness of Du Bois, is that internal conflict that we have lost Black service men and women um, who paid the ultimate price in service to a country that still has not realized full equity for Black and Brown individuals. That's a whole nother conversation, but there is trauma embedded in that. So I think it is necessary to make note of that, especially when you think about the mission of No More Martyrs. But as a organization, we absolutely do um, honor those who pay service and the ultimate price to our country. So that was the start of the week, right? Then June hit, and June is, as you know, Pride Month. And this is where we recognize and celebrate um, the LGBTQIA community and honor their rights and support and advocate for the right for everyone to love who they love and feel free and safe to live in the world as they are. This is, again, something that's very important to No More Martyrs as an organization. We are an organization, again, that builds a community of support for Black women and girls. This is holistically Black, right? So this includes the experiences of Black trans women that we know have high rates of suicide, suicidal ideation, maladaptive coping mechanisms for such as drug use and alcoholism, um, because of the lack of support, because of the fear for their own lives, because of the amount of domestic violence and overall violence that they experience just by trying to live. And then I also think it's important to make note of the fact that Pride Month came about because of the Stonewall protests, right? So the protests that took place in the late 1960s against police brutality of the LGBT community, specifically the trans community. And I also think it's important to make note that that protest against police brutality was led by Black trans women, right? And other trans women of color. So I think it's important to recognize that, because while Pride Month now is a celebration, the history and core of it is a fight for equity. And that fight continues. And if you're an ally, then you should be aware of that and educate yourself on that and make sure that your support for the LGBTQIA community is action oriented and it's intentional. So that happened this week. What also happened this week was we honored and recognized the 100th anniversary of the Tulsa Race Massacre. And I know that there are many of you who are already aware of this and many who aren't. Because honestly, I've taught in African American Studies departments, intro to African American Studies classes, and I've, as recently as 2018, taught a class where no one in the class knew what the Tulsa Race Massacre was. So again, this happened 100 years ago, in 1921, when on May 31st through June 1st, white Tulsa residents were deputized and went into the Greenwood district of Tulsa and burned it to the ground, right? Killed a number of residents. And the Greenwood district, as many of you again know, was the district known as Black Wall Street. So not only did they take the lives of what is estimated to be over 100 Black Tulsa residents and Greenwood residents, they burned their businesses to the ground. And these were businesses that were thriving, businesses that were so financially stable that they would have given rise to generations of wealth. And so that was erased. They were burned to the ground. And even though it's estimated that 300 Black Tulsa residents lost their lives, I, I really believe that we'll never know how many were lost. And we honestly will never know how many lived and then carried that trauma with them. So there's a lot of work being done in that space. It's a really a fantastic case study for the argument regarding reparations, which Vernon AME is actually very actively involved in that conversation. And that's the church that actually was a practicing church at that time and was one of the last standing structures after the race massacre and has been rebuilt by the residents and is still a functioning church there. We had that. That was the 100th anniversary. There were a lot of celebrations and guest speakers and recognitions that went throughout Tulsa this week and across the country, right? There were a lot of panel discussions, the Smithsonian, the Birmingham Civil Rights Institute. There were a lot of museums and organizations that recognized this through panel discussions and other virtual activities to really just honor and have a conversation around the Tulsa Race Massacre. So that's a lot, right? So Memorial Day, the launch of Pride Month, and the 100th anniversary of the Tulsa Race Massacre. I think what's really motivating me to jump on today with a quick video is, especially in regards to the race massacre, is what next, right? We had all of these activities, a lot of politicians, celebrities, a lot of visitors to Tulsa, Alabama, or Tulsa, Oklahoma. Sorry, I'm from Alabama, so Friday slip. Plus, my daughter's moving around in the background in the bed, and I'm trying to make sure that she doesn't pop up and make an appearance in this video because we're on vacation. But with all that activity, I just kind of really am having this thought to myself, which is what next? We recognize the 100th anniversary. There's still so much work to do in regards to Tulsa and the race massacre and what reparations looks like for the families that were impacted there, and also have a even larger national conversation about what reparations would look like. But what can we do now that this week has ended? What can we do now when those historical celebrations and recognitions and conversations kind of die down? And for me, as an educator, for me as a mental health advocate, for us as No More Martyrs, who use a social justice framework to really advance the conversations around mental health advocacy, I see an opportunity that I want to make sure that we're not losing or overlooking, right? And that opportunity is the discussion about the House bills that are popping up in a number of states that are restricting curriculum and conversations, school-based conversations around teachings regarding race. And the intentional pushback even against critical race theory. This is our opportunity. And this is absolutely a part of the legacy that we should be putting some energy behind so that Tulsa Race Massacre isn't something that's just kind of a passing conversation. It's something that's embedded into the history that we require our young people to learn in the K through 12 and beyond. Because again, like I teach at the university level, and I have definitely come across a number of students and even faculty who are not aware of what happened in Tulsa. So these House bills that are popping up, they've popped up in Texas, they popped up in Missouri, they popped up in Ohio, are really, advocating and saying that we don't want to have these theories taught in schools. We don't want to engage young people in difficult conversations that can cause emotional distress. Like, are we protecting their mental health? I don't even understand what that means, right? That we don't want to have conversations that will cause our young people distress? How do you teach Holocaust without emotional distress? Like, how do you not expect an emotional response from young people who are learning about horrific things that have happened in the world, especially that have happened in the history of this country, the United States? Um, this is the opportunity for us to be proactive and make sure that we are vocal about how dangerous and damaging it is to limit these conversations this early on in the K through 12. We can't start these conversations in the university setting. And again, I'm speaking as a mental health advocate and as a professor. When you get to the university level, you are having to push back against years of socialization, years of cultural incompetence that young people have learned and then bring into the freshman year college classroom, right? And that means that they're ill prepared to have culturally responsive, culturally competent conversations. It means that they are fully rooted already because of how they've been socialized and whatever biases that they may have. And I see it all the time. I see it, and we are missing an opportunity, right? You can't say on one hand, as a university, we are committed to diversity and equity and inclusion work, right? And then don't believe in teaching about race, intentional, complicated conversations about race, about systemic racism, about the history of policing in our country, about health disparities and social determinants of health, which is my area, and really understand how that impacts the wellness and well-being of Black people and people of color in this country. You can't say that you believe in these things and then stand by and not be vocal about these House bills that are popping up because they are damaging and they are dangerous. And so I would like to put out a call to us to be proactive. And No More Martyrs is definitely working in that space. We are laying some groundwork to continue these conversations and be vocal. And what I would like to see happen here is very much like what happened in Georgia, right? And in other parts of the country when all of these voter suppression bills started popping up, right? All of these voter suppression bills started popping up. And then you had vocal elected officials that pushed back against it. We had our current presidential administration, we had President Biden speak out against it. But we also had corporate speak out against it, right? We had Coca-Cola that spoke out against voter suppression bills. We had American Airlines that spoke out about voter suppression bills. We had the Major League Baseball speak out against the voter suppression bills. And I would like to see the same thing happen with these House bills that are banning critical race theory and that are pushing back against any forms of race discussions happening in the school system. We have to start having these difficult, complex, complicated conversations with our students early on if we're going to equip them to be equitable individuals who go off into whatever their profession may be after college, during college, actually, and beyond. So we're doing a disservice. We're working against each other. And if you are a business, just like Coca-Cola, just like American Airline, if you are an educator, if you are someone who truly believes in cultural competency, cultural responsiveness, equity, advocacy in all forms, then you have to say something. This is a moment. This is a moment where we need to really put our energy and our efforts into this. We need to get corporate backing for this. We need to get university presidents speaking out against this. And we need to get elected officials to say, no, this is not going to work. And if I see passionate about it, well, it's because I am, right? At the university level, I teach this, right? So, and I'm not saying, oh, I'm worried about losing my job because, honey, I'm not. I'm not. I'll teach this for the rest of my life. I use critical race theory. No More Martyrs is based off the framework of critical race feminism, right? Where we say and talk about misogynoir, and we talk about the impact that has on the mental well-being of Black women and girls. I'm passionate about this because this kind of curriculum is the curriculum that licensed mental health professionals should be taking in order for them to provide the most culturally competent and culturally responsive mental health care to every single person that walks into their door, especially Black women and girls. What is happening right now with these very restrictive House bills that are being proposed and that are being passed in numerous states um, is setting us up for failure. And it's setting us up for all the tools that we need to create safe spaces and healthy spaces for Black and Brown and, for all of us. We're working against ourselves. And I'll take this a step further because this really bothered me. And again, this is why we need to pay attention. And this is why this is a legacy of the Tulsa Race Massacre. The Tulsa governor signed one of these restrictive House bills in May of this year. In May of this year, when his state was preparing to honor the Tulsa Race Massacre, to really recognize the 100th anniversary of this horrific thing that happened in his state, he signed this kind of bill into action. And to me, that's so culturally incompetent that it has to be intentional. You're not paying attention. It's not even that you're not paying attention. Maybe you are paying attention and you're sending a message that says, this is important. And what we want to do is send a message that says it is. So, okay, it's vacation time. I got to go get this girl out the bed. We are in beautiful Seattle, Washington. We're about to go take a boat ride and go to the aquarium and go to Pike's Place and enjoy our time here. But I didn't want to start the day, because it's Friday, right? And not mention what was on my mind. And what was on my mind was all the things I just mentioned. Memorial weekend or Memorial Day, Pride Month, Tulsa Race Massacre. That's a week. That's a large, heavy week. And our job now is to not just go, okay, well, we had our celebrations, we had our recognitions. The 100th anniversary has been acknowledged. Now we go back to work and just go on vacation and go do our lives. That's not what we should be doing. What we should be doing is saying what's next. And as an organization, what's next for us is keeping a watchful eye on these House bills that restrict conversations about race curriculum and critical race theory in the schools and be action oriented against the pushback against it. So I encourage you to follow No More Martyrs. We're going to be doing work in this area. If you are with an organization or if you're an elected official yourself and you'd like to collaborate with us as we do this work, please email us at info@nomoremartyrs.org. If you're following us on social media, you can inbox our social media accounts. We do have different people that check those and we respond. So let's do the work. And for now, let's enjoy our weekend. We'll get back to work on Monday. Thank you for being a part of the No More Martyrs community. Have a great Friday.